morning, everybody. It is Man Coverage. This is Knoxville Nate. James P. Bonneville on the show today. James, how are you, sir?
Any better be a crime.
I wanted to hear that. It is less than 100 days away from college football. That's why we're
Holy
back.
crap.
We took a little hiatus. We took a little time off, but college football is right around the corner, and we are here to get you ready. We're here to talk off season. We're here to talk recruiting. There's been a lot of things happen since we last joined you. We had a real good show, the last one we had. I believe that was with Eric Westmoreland, the former was that our last show?
No, it was Belisari.
Oh, that's right. That's right. We
Draft.
broke down the draft with Belisari, former Ohio State quarterback. He gave us a lowdown on C.J. Stroud. He gave us his thoughts on Mr. Young in Carolina. We kind of gave our thoughts on all of the big name recruits that came out of college football, draft picks that came out of the college football and did all that. So if you missed that, go to our Twitter page at man_coverage or go to our YouTube channel and check those out because we had two good shows in the past couple weeks, but we also took a little time off. But we're back.
Hey, it's kind of like a recruiting dark period. You know, you got to take some time off where you can't talk to the recruits. So we had to do the same thing, NCAA regulations and all, you know.
Exactly. When we broke down spring practice, we broke down spring games, we broke down the draft. It's like, what the hell do you want us to talk about?
Yeah.
So there was a little time where we took a little step away, but we're back because there are things to talk about. We're going to join you every time there is something to talk about. We've also got a guest today, Marc Givler from Buckeye Huddle is going to join us. He's going to talk Buckeyes. He's going to talk recruiting. He's going to talk about the 2024 class, the 2023 class, the guys that are still out there. And yes, we are talking some Buckeyes. Got a little hate mail about, you always talk about the Buckeyes on your show. Well, you know, if you find me another team that makes the college football playoff every year, we'll talk about them because we talk about Bama, we talk about Georgia, we talk about Clemson, and we talk about Ohio State. We don't really talk about the team up north because that makes me puke. But we do talk about them when we have to. And we may have to bring up a snippet or two about them, but I try not to talk about them because I don't like to have to brush my teeth after I yak. But biggest news probably in the last week or so, I would say would be the number one quarterback in the 2024 class, Dominique Raiola, committed to Georgia. Lots of people initially thought he was going to go to Ohio State. He committed to Ohio State. Then he decommitted. There was big news. Everybody thought the sky was falling in Columbus. Not so much, as we'll talk to Marc Givler about that today. It's not really falling. But Dominic chose to go elsewhere. A lot of people had him pegged to head to Nebraska with Matt Rule. That didn't happen. He signed and is going to head to Georgia with Kirby Smart. Dylan Raiola. I'm so sorry. Dylan Raiola, the quarterback. Dominic Raiola. That shows how old I am, by the way, because I remember his dad.
Oh, my God. I saw his dad play live so many freaking times. That guy, I mean, how often does a center, pop off the screen at you when you're, watching a football game? And his dad just usually mauled people. I mean.
He did. His dad was a hell of a football player, but it's kind of ironic that his dad snapped the football and his son is going to throw the football.
Yep.
And he's going to Georgia. So his dad is not going to Georgia. Dylan is going to Georgia. What did you think when you heard that he committed to Georgia? And what is your perception of this kid overall from a talent standpoint and from a fit standpoint, James?
Well, from a talent standpoint, I mean, you just have to watch 5 minutes of his stuff, and he just blows off the charts. I mean, if you haven't paid any attention to Arizona high school football, go back and look at the quarterbacks who have come out of that state in the last 7-8 years. I mean, it's mind-blowing. Receivers and quarterbacks are blowing up, especially in that Phoenix Metroplex. And he is yet another example of that coming out of Chandler Pinnacle. And there's some great programs in that state. I mean, we've talked about, we've had some people on from Segura High School that have gone on to play Division I. I mean, from a talent perspective, this kid's great. Now, Georgia, this has got Justin Fields written all over it. This is a kid who traditionally lines up in shotgun And now he's going to have to go under center in a traditional Georgia offense. I mean, yeah, sure, they do some shotgun. Sorry, I'm fighting off a cold right now. I didn't want to cough into the mic. But, I mean, it doesn't look right from a system, and I could see him transferring out. I mean, honestly, I looked at his film. He reminds me a lot of Justin Fields, honestly. There are so many similarities between the two guys. Just the way their acumen, their knowledge of the game, just their composure level as a whole. And I mean, unless you see, I mean, I know they've got us change up at OC, but I got to imagine they're still going to run that same old traditional offense. And we all knew Justin Fields didn't fit there. So what does he do now?
Yeah, I mean, my biggest thing is, Georgia is not starved for talent. They've got several. In fact, what are we looking at? I think there's 3 guys fighting for the quarterback job right now. There's still some debate as to who's going to win that job. A lot of people have Carson Beck penciled in. Some people, favor Brock Vandegrift. And then there's the redshirt freshman, Gunnar Stock. They've got 3 pretty good quarterbacks, kind of untested, but very talented guys that are there right now. So I don't think it's 100% certain that Dylan Raiola walks in and it starts right away next year.
No, I don't think so at all.
Want to sit. So I just don't know how that works out. Seems to me like a kid that wants to play right away. So I'm not sure whether he wants to sit. And you never know what the culture fit is going to be until a kid gets on campus. I mean, that's just the truth. You don't know whether or not he's going to like going to school there. As you mentioned, he's from Arizona. Some kids go across country and there's no problem. I mean, Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, a lot of these kids are moving from the West to the Midwest or to the East Coast or to the South, and they're playing football and there's no big deal. Other kids get out there and they're like, damn, this place sucks. And they want to get out of there. So it'll be interesting to see whether A, he stays committed there, he signs the paperwork and he goes to Georgia, and then 2, whether or not he wins the job right away and becomes the starter in next year in 2024, or whether he doesn't win the job and whether he sticks around. So still a very good get. I'm not gonna.
100%.
I mean, that's a huge get.
Well, Kirby's a hell of a recruiter. I mean, let's be honest. You'd have to live under a freaking rock to say Kirby's not a good recruiter. And he has taken that Georgia brand across the country. I mean, heck, he got that one cornerback that just got drafted in the 3rd round out of Swaharo High School, Keely Ringo. Yeah. And I mean, they've gone across the country to get talent, and this is another great get. But I think there is something a little subliminal that if you remember his dad, who was the quarterback who was his dad snapping to at Detroit? I'll give you a hint. He plays for the Rams now.
Yeah, Matt Stafford?
Yeah. Where'd he go to college?
He went to Georgia.
Uh-huh. You can't tell me those two weren't talking.
I didn't even think about that. I did not even think about that, but that's a very good point. But, maybe he just wanted to go where they're winning championships. And let's
you never know.
They've won 2 championships in a row.
Yeah.
And as we mentioned, he's recruiting at a high clip. He got Dylan Raiola, the number 1 player overall, the number 1 quarterback, number 1 player in Arizona. He got Ellis Robinson, the 4th, the number 1 corner. He's got DeMarcus Riddick, the number 3 linebacker. He's got Jalen Hayward, the number 3 safety. He's got Peyton Woodyard, the number 4 safety. He's got a lot of guys that are in the top 10 in the country in their position. So he's got the number 2 class overall right now.
It looks like they're going to get Ryan Wingo out of St. Louis University High School out of St. Louis too as well. So number 2 receiver in the country. I mean, they traditionally don't get those top 5 type of guys at receiver, except maybe Muhammad Massaquoi. But I mean, this would be a good get for them in this class. And I think getting Raiola will be something that could push Wingo over the top to commit to the Dogs.
Yeah, I think so. And Muhammad Massaquoi is not a man I've thought about in some time. So I know
I'm going back a ways. I mean, that's when Stafford was still playing Georgia. I mean, incredible talent, But it was amazing watching him go across the field for as long as his arms were. It's like they shrank as soon as they got in between the hashes.
It's a true story, and obviously didn't really tear it up in the NFL.
No,
It's
incredible talent.
I would
Holy crap.
call him I would go as far as to call him kind of a bust in the NFL, to be honest.
Yeah.
But it was a pretty good wide receiver in the SEC. I as I mentioned, I hate talking Michigan football, but they are ranked number 1 right now in recruiting. They've got 17 total commits. They only have 1 5-star, but they've got 10 4 stars and 6 3 stars. I don't know. I don't know what to say about this because they are doing a pretty good job, and they're pulling some guys up there. Obviously, we'll talk today with our guest, Marc Givler, about the quarterback that they've got in the 2024 class. But what do you think about what's happening? Why is Michigan having so much success? I mean, obviously they've been playing better. They've been winning more games, all of that stuff. But why do you think that their recruiting has taken a major uptick in the recent history?
Well, I mean, you got to go back to what they've done the last couple of years. I think I thought the recruiting class last year should have been better than what it was based on what they did. But they're getting back to old school Michigan values. I mean, you go back after Lloyd Carr left and Rich Rod came in, that was a complete culture shock to that program. And they never truly got back to it until you got a mainstay like Jim Harbaugh to come in, who understands the culture, understands the whole Michigan man philosophy. I mean, let's be honest. We even talked about it on this show that the sky was falling when they didn't get Lloyd Carr's grandson, who goes to Notre Dame, and the kid out of inner city Detroit that goes out to UCLA, the Moore kid, who could potentially start at UCLA.
Yeah.
Yet in the 24 class, they're going to bring in Jaden Price, who is a top-notch talent. And suddenly Harbaugh has leveled the ship again. I mean, my question is during the recruitment, did he spend the night in the same room like he did that one kicker that just got drafted? Like, you remember that? That was like I mean, first of all, what parent under their right mind would allow that to happen? I mean, seriously, that is like the craziest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, no, what do you expect from a guy who runs around playing flag football with his shirt off and khaki pants? I mean,
does he own anything other than khaki pants? I mean,
no.
seriously.
No, I've never seen him in anything but khaki pants. And I'm a Michigan hater, so I hate him, but I have to give him credit because he has done a really good job turning that program around,
yeah.
A, and then B, recruiting. I mean, the recruiting has gone up huge in the last few years. And this 2024 class being ranked number 1, I'm absolutely blown away by it. As you mentioned, the quarterback, Jaden Davis, out of Providence Day School in Charlotte, North Carolina, getting him to come up there. He's the number 4 ranked quarterback overall. He's got the number 2 ranked tight end in Brady Priestcorn, or however you pronounce it, Jordan Marshall, who is a highly sought after running back out of Archbishop Moeller, very famous high school in Cincinnati. He's got the number 8 ranked offensive tackle out of Kansas City, Andrew Sprague. I mean, this guy's gone out and gotten some pretty good players, and they've got a bunch, a voluminous amount of players as well. So, they got a lot of guys to replace who've gone in the NFL the last few years, and they've been able to do that. That was the one thing I wasn't sure if they were going to be able to do, was replace some of these guys in their production. And, it's easy to say, it's harder to do it. Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, they've been able to replace these guys that go straight to the NFL. And it's a hard thing to do, really, to reload like that every year. And it looks like Michigan's going to be able to do that. Want to stay on the quarterback position right now, because we've had several guys transfer. Recently we've had several guys transfer this offseason and hit the portal. And there's a couple guys that I want to talk about. But first, I want to talk about the one that just happened, and that's the kid from Notre Dame, Tyler Buckner, the quarterback who left Notre Dame and is now transferring to Alabama after the spring. And I want to know, is this just for depth, or is this an indictment on Simpson and what's his name? The other
Milroe.
Gosh, I was about to say Renfro. Milroe, the other quarterback that Alabama has. I want to get your thoughts on that. Is this depth, or is this I want someone else to push these guys and potentially compete? I just don't see Tyler Buckner starting for Notre Dame.
I think this is a competition move. I mean, it was bad.
Wow.
It was that bad. I mean, like we talked about before in the last show about if you take Bryce Young off that Alabama team, what are they? I mean, 8-4, 7-5, and you're living off that defense, who, let's be honest, was incredible. I mean, you had Will Anderson, you had Kool-Aid McKinstry. I mean, Toa. I mean, you had some real talent.
Yeah.
But the straw that stirred the drink was Bryce Young. I mean, Gibbs would disappear at times. The receiving core was incredibly young. The offensive line, while talented, just didn't work well together. Yet Young just made shit happen. And now you don't have Bryce Young. And the maturity factor for Milroe, who's more of a running quarterback, and Simpson, who's just young, it made a lot of logical sense. Now, Tommy Rees now moved from Notre Dame down to Tuscaloosa. Part of me wonders, was Tyler Buckner the first person he called? Or was it Sam Hartman who he helped bring to Notre Dame?
Wow. I completely glossed over that. And as someone who talks about and knows a lot about college football, I should have mentioned that. Tommy Rees left the Irish, went to take over after Bill O'Brien went to the Patriots. He went down to Bama to take over this offense. And that makes a lot more sense now as to why Tyler Buckner is going down there. I think Tommy Rees liked this guy. I mean, he started him in the opener against Ohio State. Let's be honest, for 3 quarters, they were playing pretty good, holding their own. Wheels kind of fell off a little bit, after that game. But I think Tommy Rees likes this kid.
Yeah.
I really do. So we'll see. I agree with you. Overall, I do think he's looking for competition. I think he wants to put 3 guys in the mix. I think he wants to see if maybe Tyler Buckner's better than these 2 guys. I don't think he is. I'm really one of the few guys that likes Milroe. I think he's good. I think he'll get better throwing the football. And I think they'll, run the spread option with him to start the season. Not that that's really Tommy Rees's forte, but that's what this kid does well. And I think they can run over most teams with the talent they have with him, reading the defensive end. So,
you look at Milroe, though. There's a lot of similarities when I saw him in that. Was it A&M when he came and played most of the game after, Bryce Young got hurt? I think it was A&M.
I think he played almost the entire A&M game, and then he played the Arkansas game was when Bryce Young got hurt, I think.
Yeah. One second here.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure.
Man, this cold is kicking my – I look at Jordan Travis, and you look at the beginning of his career at Florida State – there's a lot of similarities. And you look at as he matured and really got more confidence in his game, look how much better he is. Their biggest problem right now at Florida State isn't Jordan Travis.
No.
It's their red zone offensive play calling, which I don't blame Jordan Travis for that. They could have lost that LSU game just because they couldn't get a freaking goal line, like stupid goal line situation. Who does a reverse on the goal line? Seriously.
I've never seen that.
Yep. But, honestly, I think Milroe could get some – but you bring in a guy like Buckner, he's got maturity. He's played in that big stage at Notre Dame a lot more. I think he's going to start the year. Now, will he end the year? Who knows?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. We'll see what happens down there in Bama. We're going to keep a close eye on that for sure to see who wins the job. But right now we've got to talk about some of these other guys. You mentioned Notre Dame. We were just talking about them. They got the Wake Forest quarterback, Sam Hartman. He was the number 5 overall player in the portal, according to 247 Sports. Mm-hmm. He's went up there, pretty early, got into the mix. Another guy that we, know a lot about is the Devin Leary kid from NC State. I believe he was pretty banged up last year, missed some time. He's going to Kentucky, which I think is huge for Kentucky. I think he's a big upgrade over what they have. I think he's an upgrade over who they had last year, to be honest with you. But those guys, Hudson Card to Purdue, We also talked about, what was the other one?
Tyler Mordecai out of Wisconsin.
Mordecai, yeah, he did not look good in the spring. Colin Schlee, transferred from Kent State to UCLA. Which one of these guys to you think has the most success right away and helps out their team as a transfer quarterback?
I've got it between two guys, and it more revolves around their offensive coordinator than anything, is Devin Leary and Hudson Carr. Liam Cohen comes back to Lexington, and you look at how he really redeveloped. The former Kentucky quarterback. I'm drawing
Will Levis.
Will Levis. Then he leaves, and look at how Will Levis played. I mean, granted, the offensive line was awful. Helen Keller could have done a better job of pass protection. But, I mean, Will Levis was Will Levis. But you look at the year before, and Liam Cohen was there. Plus, he had Wan'Dale Robinson at receiver.
Yeah.
I mean, he looked the part. And I think Liam Cohen is a real underrated X's and O's guy that's out there right now. And the other guy is Hudson Carr. I mean, you bring in Graham Harrell to West Lafayette, and you put his arm there. I mean, granted, do I think Purdue is going to be good? No, not at all. But they're going to put up points. I mean, they had a lot of guys transfer out. But I think Purdue is going to really put up points.
Yeah, they always seem to do that. Yeah. They never seem to really get over that hump, but they did beat Tennessee a couple years ago in the bowl game. Last year was kind of a disappointment. But I think that helps. So you didn't name Sam Hartman. Why not? Do you think he's going to, be better than what they had at quarterback last year?
Well, I think he's a better quarterback as a whole. I mean, you look at the offense he ran under Doug Clawson at Wake. It was very wide open, and he had A.T. Perry at receiver. He had good complementary guys out on the outside. Now he's going to a system that's much more conservative. He'll have to do some under center as well as standing back. And the receiving core, let's be honest, at Notre Dame was a huge effing weakness. I mean, a colossal weakness. Would you rather have Wake Forest's receiving core last year or Notre Dame's? Anybody who said they wanted Notre Dame's, literally stick your head in the sand and leave it there.
No, they're still struggling at wide receiver.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. And they've had some guys leave who actually were going to be in the mix. So yeah, I think that's a problem. I'm not sure if Sam Hartman is going to solve all their problems. I mean, I do think he's an upgrade, as you said, but I mean, there's a lot of pressure to come in and win right away. And I'm not so sure how good this team is as a whole. It'll be interesting to watch, but
plus you get a first-time OC too as well. I mean,
that's what I was about to say. I think Tommy Rees leaving is going to affect this offense more than anything. I mean, don't you think? I mean, he's been the offensive coordinator there for a long time. I mean, he was there with Brian Kelly. He stayed when Freeman took over. I think him leaving was a big hit.
Yeah, agreed. Very much so. I mean, who knows that culture better than Tommy Rees? He was always the little engine that could. He always overachieved like you wouldn't believe. Yet he always done it. I mean, it's kind of hard not to cheer for a guy like that. And now he leaves to go to Bama. I don't know. I'm a little worried about the Irish. Defensively, the Irish are going to be good.
Yeah.
But offensively, I don't know what to expect.
Yeah, I don't either. And we'll see how good they are. I mean, luckily this year they don't have to open against Ohio State. Yeah. But they do have to play Ohio State, I believe, in their first, I think it's their third or fourth game. So they're going to have, a couple tests. And remember last year, they went down to a couple teams they had no business losing to.
Yeah.
Say Marshall. I believe they lost to Stanford, who was horrible. So we'll see what happens. We'll see if Hartman can improve them. But let's talk about who Notre Dame has to play coming up, and that's the Buckeyes. I think it's good for both teams that they don't have to play the first game this year. But the Buckeyes have certainly had a big time off season, and we need to get into what's been going on there and how they're doing. I'm going to go and bring our guest in here. Mark, can you hear us?
Yes. How are we doing, guys?
We're doing great, Mark. Thank you so much for joining us today. We truly appreciate it. I know you've been a busy man on the road, going down. I believe you were at the Elite 11, checking all that out. Give us an update on what you saw and what stood out to you watching those quarterbacks.
Yeah, I was down for about a week and a half down in Georgia and Florida. I was able to get the Georgia Elite 11 regional. AIR NOLAN, Ohio State commit, was tremendous. Got his invite to the finals. Accurate, arm strength, mechanics. I always kind of laugh. Every time I see a lefty throw, it looks weird to me, but with him, it doesn't look as weird to me. It just it's really short delivery and spins it, and just kind of the way the ball kind of jumps out of his hand is really pretty. Obviously, Jaden Davis was their Michigan commit, so that was kind of the story of the day, was watching those two guys battle. Jaden, I assume, is going to get his Elite 11 finals invite at some point, but Nolan was the only one to get it that day. And then Juju Lewis, 2026 out of Carrollton. That I don't know if I would go this far, but I had someone at the camp kind of tell me, like, that's what a first overall pick looks like when they're a sophomore in high school.
Wow.
Like, oh, okay. But yeah, he's special. I mean, he really can really throw it. Big time arm, accuracy, spin, just all the tools. He's probably only about 6'1" right now. I think that's the only knock on him, is he's not super tall, but he's still a puppy, so he could grow another inch or two. But he's kind of the guy who's getting that. He's like, the Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, same part of the country, and he's getting, like, everyone down there is like, this is the next guy. So he's got offers from everybody already. So it was good to see him again. I had seen him in late February, I think.
Wow.
Who would your comparison be to AIR NOLAN of players you've seen, like, out there? I mean, you've seen him live. That's why it's different watching film than seeing him play live.
Yeah, it's interesting because he is very, just the left-handed component makes it very hard to get a great comparison. I would say I would take maybe a couple pieces from a couple different people's games. Mentally, the maturity, the leadership, kind of the way he kind of has the respect of everybody, he reminds me a little bit of Jalen Hurts. Is he going to be as physical, as good of a runner as Jalen? Probably not. But that's kind of the first guy he reminds me of when you talk to him. From a physical standpoint, it's hard. It's hard to think of a guy who's, again, left-handed, a little bit mobile. He's not Tim Tebow.
That would be cool if he was.
It's really kind of difficult to find a great comparison. But
Mark Brunell. I mean, granted, I'm aging myself quite a bit when I drop his name out there.
Right? Could Brunell move like that? I don't know. Yeah. It's just it's really like I said, Jalen Hurts is the one that comes back to me just because of the way he carries himself. But there also is some similarities in the build. Like, when he gets into a college program, he's going to be a big, strong kid, just like Jalen is. He's just left-handed. It's so that's kind of my best comparison at the moment.
Nice. I want to jump back a little bit and talk about, we've been talking a little bit about, the 2023 season today. And I want to go back to this 2023 class for the Buckeyes. I know this may be back in the memory banks, but I want to talk about some of these kids that Ohio State brought in. Obviously we've seen some of the wide receivers, transfer the last few weeks and get out of Dodge because of, obviously, there's only so many snaps to go around. And it sounds to me like some of these kids in the 2023 class are impressing them. Obviously, Carnell Tate, I think he showed up pretty good at spring practice. But who, in your mind, is going to have an immediate impact for the Buckeyes this season from that 2023 class? And who do you think is most ready to play, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely hit on Carnell Tate. As I've said before with him, you can't put that toothpaste back in the tube at this point. I don't care who was out this spring for them and who wasn't. Emeka Ibuka wasn't out there. Julian Fleming wasn't really out there. It doesn't matter at this point. The way he played in the spring, you can't now relegate him to the bench. So he's going to play. Even though he's coming in late, I usually don't like guys coming in late. It's difficult, but I think Brandon Inniss will work his way into the rotation. He's physically ready. And he just got up there, I think like a week or two ago. So he's now in the program, and I know he's been working hard. Was working hard down in Florida. I think he had the playbook and everything. So he's been putting in the preparation. So I think it's gonna be hard to keep him off the field. Then it gets interesting. I like their offensive line class. It's hard for me to see those guys getting out there early. I think it'd have to be a real disaster up front for that to happen. It's just hard for the young linemen. There's a couple guys I like. Again, it's not easy when you don't enroll early, but Caden McDonald's a guy who comes in with some size. I think they're looking for that fourth and fifth kind of defensive tackle in the rotation. Can he get to that point quickly? We'll see. I love Jelani Thurman.
Yeah.
They have so many tight ends. I don't know how much real time he's going to get, but he's definitely going to be a guy who plays. Big time tight end. He's probably the best tight end prospect they've landed in a long time. I haven't seen a freshman tight end come in the program like this. Not even Jeremy Rucker. Jeremy wasn't really physically ready like Jelani is. Jermaine Matthews gets in there at corner. I know they really like him. I think he could earn some time. And I look again, another receiver is Noah Rogers is in there early too, made a play in the spring game. And again, it's gonna be hard to get all these receivers in, but I could see Noah, possibly getting in there and getting some reps as well. But it's a good class. They got a bunch of guys in there early, and they got a couple summer guys that are going to be pretty good. Jason Moore from DeMath is a guy who's physically ready, but is he going to be able to crack, pretty deep defensive line rotation? Yeah,
no, there's no doubt. And just to follow up on that, the Buckeyes were way more active, in my opinion, in the portal this offseason. I mean, they went out. We were just talking about Notre Dame. They went out and got Lorenzo Styles. They went out and obviously the big one to me was Jihad Carter from Syracuse and bringing him in to help in the secondary. And then, Davison, I'm not even going to try and pronounce his name, but the corner from Ole Miss.
Igbinison, yes.
Thank you. I didn't want to butcher it, so I appreciate you throwing it out.
I may have, but no, I think I got it down. It took me all spring, but I think I got it down.
No, that sounded way better than what I was going to throw out. But they got him. I believe they got another lineman. I mean, talk to me a little bit about any of these portal guys. I believe they got a D tackle from Ole Miss too, if my memory serves me correct. Malone, I think is his name. Any of these guys from the portal you think might be able to come in and help with depth and get on the field quick?
Yeah, so I thought Davison Igbinison was maybe their second or third best corner in spring. I think he's going to play a lot. Jihad Carter's going to play. Are either of them going to start is kind of the $1 million question. Unfortunately, Carter had a bit of a knee tweak there midway through spring, and so his spring got cut a little short, but he'll be fine for fall camp. But they'll definitely play. It's just a matter of will they crack that, basically a 5-man secondary, starting secondary, and we'll see. I think Davison's going to play a lot though, and I think Carter's going to play a lot. And then you got the other two guys. Tywone Malone was kind of brought in as like a bridge guy. So I don't expect a ton out of him this year, maybe the fourth or fifth defensive tackle in the rotation. But I think what that was mainly was he's got I think 3 years to play 3. He's got a few years of eligibility here. And look, Michael Hall could be a 3 and done.
Yeah.
Tyleik Williams could be a 3 and done. I think Ty Hamilton has like a COVID year, but does Ty Hamilton say, I'm just going to take my crack? So I think they're protecting there against losing 2 or 3 guys early, essentially, to the NFL at defensive tackle. So that was a huge get for them for their long-term depth. And I think Malone, again, could maybe crack the back end of the defensive tackle rotation this year. With Lorenzo Styles Jr., I love the pickup. I don't know, like from my standpoint, he's kind of making a position change. Now he's played corner his entire high school career, but he's basically making a position change. He's got 3 years to play 2. So he has a redshirt year. My sense on that is even if he gets into a couple games in like garbage time is that they're going to protect his redshirt and they're just going to use this year to develop him so that he can help them next year when in real minutes. I don't know that it would be surprising to me. It would not only be a little damning to their other corners if he was able to kind of jump right in this year, it would also be pretty amazing on his end if he was able to do that. So I think he's kind of a stash for a year, redshirt, and then you get 2 years out of him.
Nice.
How much more portal work do you think Ohio State's going to do, especially at the tackle position after losing Jones and Johnson? I mean, you bring in Cutler, you bring in Simmons from San Diego State, but I have to imagine they've got to create more depth there because that was a problem area even last year. I mean, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, and that was, we got to get to those guys too. I mean, the problem with the tackle situation is it's really, you can find running backs, even like corners and receivers. There's like so many of those guys. There's so many like 6-foot athletes out there that can run. There's so many of those guys out there. You can go to the portal and you can get guys there. Who's losing a 6'6", 300-pound offensive tackle that can play? I mean, those guys aren't leaving Alabama and Georgia, so you're hoping maybe like someone fell through the cracks in the recruiting process and like blossomed somewhere, and you can steal them from like a MAC school or a mid-major.
Yeah,
and those are just really hard to find. And they found one in Simmons, but I think they would add one if they could find one. I just don't know that there's going to be one out there. I mean, they were in on a few other tackles earlier in the portal season, and you're very rarely going to get a sure thing there. I mean, even the guys they were looking at who, were Power 5 guys like Walter Rouse, he's coming off an injury. I mean, he hadn't particularly played better later in his career than he did earlier in his career. You have other guys, are they tackles? Can they play at this level? So you just have so many questions you have to answer at that position. So I think they're probably done this offseason with that, barring a surprise entry. Like something weird would have to happen where someone becomes available who's not available right now.
I think as you look back at it, I mean, outside of Olatimi out of Virginia going to Michigan, I mean, there's been very little in the transfer portal on the offensive line. Everybody comes in, they stay put.
Yeah, but there's just, look, everyone, I don't think there's a team in the country that's like, yeah, we couldn't use another great offensive tackle. I think it's just there's so few of them in existence that when you have one, you make sure you keep them, and they're not sitting on your bench somewhere. I mean, no franchise tackle is sitting on a bench anywhere. That's just not happening. And so again, you have to find them. You have to get that 2 or 3 star kid that fell through the cracks, that was maybe really raw in high school and found his way to, Florida Atlantic or Kent State or something. And boom, oh my gosh, this guy's really good. And you kind of steal him that way. But because otherwise those guys don't leave the big programs.
Yeah. And that being said, if they are done, what's your, take on the status of this offensive line? I mean, obviously losing Paris Johnson Jr. and losing DeJuan Jones the same year would affect any team, but this team in particular, I mean, it's hard to really tell anything from a spring game, but I've watched some practice tape, and it's hard for me to get a read on what this offensive line is going to look like. Do you think this is a spot of weakness, I guess, for this team?
It's my single biggest concern for this team. If you tell me right now what could derail Ohio State this year from being a playoff team, it's the offensive line. It's actually not the quarterback situation to me. I think if they protect whoever the quarterback's going to be, that they'll be just fine with the weapons they have, that you can plug and play a lot of good quarterbacks in there and that they'll be just fine. I did not like what I saw out of the offensive line. I was at 5 or 6 practices. None of them, there were times I came away, well, that wasn't too bad, but there was not a day I came away saying, oh, they were really good on the offensive line today. And now part of that, they have really good defensive ends. And I know that people are expecting more out of these guys. Like JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer. I know people are like waiting for them to kind of take the next leap. I think that defensive line is going to be the thing that really takes a big leap. So I think part of that is, experienced defensive line beating young, inexperienced offensive line that's still trying to piece itself together. And defense is generally ahead of the offense in spring anyway. So I think there's some of that we can kind of sit back on and make an excuse or two and kind of wait and see what things look like in August. And obviously Simmons wasn't out there. But yeah, it's my biggest concern. And I think if if you can plug in Simmons there, whether it's at right tackle or left tackle, I would just keep him at right tackle. I would not even. They've had Josh Fryer at left all spring. They're probably been their best lineman. I would just leave Fryer at left tackle instead of moving him back to where he was and trying to put Simmons at left when he played right at San Diego State. I would just kind of put Simmons at right, Fryer at left. I think they'll figure out the interior. I'm a little concerned about center, but their guards will be fine. And so once this all is pieced together and we can get a look at it in August, I may feel better, but right now that's definitely my biggest concern.
Well, one question I've got for you, because, and Nate's going to freaking hate me for asking this, is you look at Brian Hartline's recruiting capability, which is, calling it legendary would be saying mildly. You put him in the Tim Brewster, Larry Johnson category. Look at what he has done developing receivers. When is he going to get that head coaching job? Because when that Cincinnati,
it's not. Come on.
I know, but especially within this new realm of how NIL is. He fits even more perfect. And when the Cincinnati job came open, I'm like, man, that's like a perfect fit. He knows Ohio. He grew up here. And they went with Satterfield. I get it because of experience standpoint, but what are your thoughts? Bringing a couple X's. I don't know what he is on X's and O's because he blows it away so much on recruiting. You don't get to hear about the X's and O's side. What are your thoughts?
Well, I would say this to start. If this offensive coordinator experiment works out for him, that kind of takes him into the stratosphere.
Yeah.
If he comes out this year and is actually the primary play caller and their offense continues to produce the level it's been producing, you'll start to hear the old, he's the next Lincoln Riley. You will start to hear Lincoln Riley stuff around him.
Yeah.
That being said, he's got a little bit of Luke Fickell in him. Fickell stayed at Ohio State probably damn near a decade longer than we thought he would. I don't think Hartline's going to jump at Akron or even like a Toledo. I don't think he's going to do that. I think he will wait for a Power 5 opportunity where he really, and not just any, again, he's not going to go and try and, revive Vanderbilt or something.
I was just going to say that too as well.
Like, he's not going to take a job where he's bringing a knife to a gunfight. So it's going to depend kind of what becomes available over the next few years. And again, how this OC thing goes, because again, the one thing that I think people would be hesitant about is like, okay, and I know people are going to say, well, Urban Meyer was never a coordinator, and that's true. But a lot of these teams are going to want you to at least have some coordinator experience.
Yeah.
And so if this does go well for him, it does kind of take him even higher into the realm of a desirable head coaching candidate.
Yeah, God, let's hope that doesn't happen. I do want the offense to do well.
That's the catch-22 because you want this to work if you're an Ohio State fan. But if it works too well, it could speed up the process with Hartline.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. But it was kind of weird to me watching the spring game, and it's a spring game, so it obviously means nothing. But it was weird to me watching the dynamic of who was calling the plays. It kind of looked like Hartline was calling them, but Day was watching him over his shoulder. It just kind of seemed weird to me. So I hope that's not a problem, and I that's definitely something to look at, and it's something that's worrying me, just like the offensive line.
Well, there's no question. Like, Ryan Day is not going to, as much as he says he's going to back off a little bit. When it comes crunch time, he's going to be involved. His input is going to be given in play calling and key decisions and key situations. He's always going to be an offensive guy at heart, so he's going to be involved with quarterback development. He's going to be involved in play calling, and it's just finding some chemistry there. And that's what spring's for. I think everyone, was kind of watching certain things and expecting it to be just a perfect, well-oiled machine. I'm like, guys, they've been doing this for like a month. Like, this is going to take some time. They're going to do some more scrimmages in fall camp and continue to kind of figure this out. And so, yeah, that's going to be important, finding a balance there, and Ryan Day, especially, finding a balance between, making sure, look, Ryan Day's a really good offensive mind. Yeah. So you do want his input. But it's just kind of how to give it, when to give it, that type of thing. And they'll work that out.
How much have you watched have you seen any live work with Jeremiah Smith or Mylan Graham at all?
Yes, I've seen a lot of. I just saw Jeremiah this past week, and I saw Milan a couple weeks ago at the Under Armour camp. But I've seen a ton of Jeremiah. I've seen him at several camps. I've been to the school 3 or 4 times the last 15 months. Saw him play against American Heritage last year in the fall. Jeremiah is as good of a receiver prospect as I've ever seen.
If you would compare him to who would you throw him out there as a comparison to?
Like Julio Jones.
Wow.
Wow.
He's big, fast, strong, catches everything. I literally can't find a weakness in his game. It's crazy. I'm always the guy who can find something in somebody where it's like, guys, calm down with the hype. He's got to do this better. He's got to work on this. He is. It's real. It's like impossible to find a weakness in his game from work ethic and personality all the way to physical traits to skills to everything else. He is like right out of a lab. It's exactly how you build a wide receiver.
I mean, it's kind of funny because I'm sitting there thinking about past Ohio State receivers that were that big and physical. I mean, you got to go back to David Boston.
Yep.
I mean, granted, he got super big when he got to the pros. But I mean,
too big.
Yeah, too big. That was like freakishly big. But yeah, so you think, wow, that's interesting. You add that mix to that combination. Wow.
What do you think, Mark, about him? I mean, obviously he's committed to Ohio State, but we've seen people, drop commitments before. What do you think about him? Now that we're talking about him, let's just go ahead and hit this. What do you think about him and the rest of his recruiting? Do you think he's going to stay the course? He's obviously going to make some more visits. I mean, talk to us about your thoughts on him for actually signing the paper.
He's going to give Ohio State fans anxiety because that's what Ohio State fans do when one of their commits is taking other visits. If Brian Hartline is there, I would, and I don't see why he wouldn't be at this point. I just don't think this offseason is going to be the right time for that. If Hartline's there, there's like zero chance he doesn't go to Ohio State. I mean, that's really the bottom line with Jeremiah. So I don't think there's anything to worry about. He's been upfront with Ohio State about this. I've talked to him about it several times. We did a big 10-minute interview the other day, and he said, look, there's nothing to worry about. He's like, I'm just, he saw Brandon Innes commit to Oklahoma last year or 2 years ago, and then Lincoln Riley bolted. And I think he's just, hey, if something happens with Brian Hartline, let me make sure I've done my homework on a couple of these other schools that I like to make a decision in the event that would happen. But and Ohio State's fine with it. Even the people I talked to at Ohio State who are normally like super like edgy when this stuff happens, they're like, we're fine. So I don't think anyone's concerned about it at this point, and I fully expect him to sign with Ohio State.
Wow. How's Travion Henderson's health right now?
Good, I think. I mean, everything looks good. He was doing some side work. Obviously, they held him out of spring, kind of a load management deal, but was working on the side, was kind of doing some drill work and stuff on the side, and looked fine to me. Everything I've heard is that he's going to be 100% ready to go. Fall camp opens.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think that's huge. I mean, the offense kept moving, but to me, the biggest thing that stunted, the overall progress of this team and potentially playing for a national championship and winning it was Mayan Williams and Travion Henderson being absent. I mean, that to me, you could have run the clock out in that game. I mean, we had so many. I mean, there's so many things we could. I'm not even going to talk about the game because it'll make me barf. But that there was so many things there. But missing those two guys to me was the biggest thing. But I do want to talk a little bit more about the 2024 class. There's been some pretty good work done. I mean, I like this class overall. I like a lot of these players that I'm looking at. Some of the guys that we've mentioned, some of the guys that we haven't. But James Peoples, the running back, Nolan, we already talked about Smith, Stover. These guys, the guy that's right over here near me is, the tight end LeBlanc out of Baylor. I like this class overall, and I like the Armstrong kids out of St. Edward. But to me, what is your overall feel for this 2024 class? And do you see them potentially bringing any other big names in. I know they're still in the business for Micah Hudson and KJ Bolden, but do you see them potentially being able to steal any of these other big name guys in this class?
Yeah, so I think the big focus right now is locking up this defense. One guy I really like where things are going right now is Kingston Viliamuasa, the linebacker out of St. John Bosco in California. I think that's an Ohio State Notre Dame battle right now, and I think Ohio State's doing a great job there. I think one of the big things to watch is that safety position right now. So KJ Bolden, obviously, as you mentioned, committed to Georgia, or not, I'm sorry, is deciding between like Ohio State, Georgia, Clemson, Alabama. Peyton Woodyard is committed to Georgia, and he's from Bosco. So if I think the dominoes could fall in such a way where if Ohio State misses out on Bolden, but Bolden goes to Georgia, that Ohio State could end up flipping Woodyard from Georgia because Georgia's taking like 1 million safeties in this class. And I think something's going to have to give there. And Woodyard has visited Ohio State in the spring. He's going to come back for an official in June. And if they get his teammate, Viliamuasa, they're pretty close. And again, if Bolden goes, so this is kind of the weird thing. If you're an Ohio State fan, if you don't get KJ Bolden, you don't want him to go to Alabama. You want him to go to Georgia. Yeah. Because that could, it would feel to me like Ohio State has a really, really good chance to get one of Bolden or Woodyard. I don't think getting both is really on the table, but again, I think they have a decent chance of getting one because if they don't get Bolden, I really think they could flip Woodyard.
I just got to give you credit on nailing those South Pacific names because even you watch TV, you got people still have a problem with, and I do too, with DJ Ungalele. And it was just funny. It was like you rallied off and there was like no tension in your face whatsoever. You got you nailed it cold. And I'm like, holy crap, that's good.
I've known Kingston since he was like a freshman. So it's like 3 years of practice there. Almost. So,
still, that was very good. I was impressed too.
We get that many vowels in a row. I just kind of like your brain starts spinning. The hamster goes off the rails and
Yes. I probably, pronounced JT's during his recruiting process. I probably pronounced JT's last name about 5 different ways because you get started and then you're like, oh God, like your whole brain gets scrambled. You're like, did I say that right? Because you got to remember the E sounds like an I and the I sounds like an E, and it just oh my goodness.
Well, hey, I'm glad you brought him up. Actually, I know we got to get you out of here, but I do want to talk about him. The Penn State game, that to me was what I envisioned him doing, all season. He didn't have a bad year by any stretch of the imagination. The Northwestern game, he played very well as well, in my opinion. But the Penn State game to me was this is what I thought this guy was going to be. Just talk to me a little bit about him. You already mentioned a little bit about the DNs, and obviously they're getting better. But I think this is the guy. I like Jack Sawyer, but JTT to me is the one that I think can be close to potentially a Chase Young kind of game record. You agree with me on that, or am I crazy?
Well, yeah. Anytime you show the things he showed against Penn State, you can see what he's capable of. And that's, the offensive line's kind of been my big thing this spring, but the other thing I've said a lot is look, these guys got to stop flashing. It's time to go out there every Saturday and do what you're capable of doing. And I say that about both JT and Jack Sawyer. Everyone got on Jack, I think more than JT. I really think JT's Penn State game saved him from a lot of criticism because Jack Sawyer led the team in sacks last year. That's a trivia question. I think even 90% of Ohio State fans would fail.
Yeah.
But Jack didn't have that one incredible game. So I think he takes a little bit more of the flack than JT does from the fan base. But the fact of the matter is, if this team wants to win a national championship, if they want to have a top 5 defense, those guys have to bring it every Saturday. We can't be talking about, the flashing and this is, that was incredible. And then next week we don't hear their name called very much. And quite frankly, Kenyatta Jackson is going to push them if they don't perform every week. Kenyatta Jackson's had an unbelievable spring. And so they're going to get some push from him and Caden Curry. And so that's to me is kind of the key of the defense, is because I think the secondary will be better, especially because it's going to be healthier, we would assume. And we know the linebackers will be solid because they have experience and they have some depth there now too. But it's if they want to be national championship caliber, those 5-star defensive ends need to play that way.
One last question, and it can be really quick. We talked about Juju Lewis to start off the show. Do you expect his recruitment to be kind of on that same level as Quinn Ewers, where it's just crazy, like it gets almost rock star-ish S quality?
Yeah, I mean, he'll be probably, I don't think the 26 rankings have come out anywhere yet, but when they do, he'll probably be like 1 or 2 in the country. And, he's got Ohio State and Alabama, and he's got all these, USC. He's got all
the normal players,
all the big national programs, and all the big quarterback factories have offered him. He visited Ohio State in the spring. That's going to be the next, big recruitment I think everyone follows, and that everyone is kind of, and I think what'll make it even more interesting is he's got, much like Quinn and much like Justin Fields, he doesn't really do a lot. You kind of have to get him in person if you want to talk to him. He's not a kid who's like answering every phone call about wanting and every text about interview requests. So, and I guess Arch Manning was like this too. There's going to be some mystery to it, because he's not going to tell you everything he's thinking, and he's not going to do every interview, and he's not going to be out there in the media a lot. So there's going to be some mystery to it too. So I think it's going to be one that a lot of people pay attention to.
Nice. Thank you.
Yeah, it'll be fun to watch. But, I think if as long as we keep Hartline and James doesn't sell him to some team for us.
Sorry.
I think you want him to go to Minnesota and come help your Gophers out. But
hey,
we're not giving
PJ's doing well.
But anyway,
Mark,
I
think PJ does a great job in Minnesota. I think he does. I think look, that is not an easy job.
No.
You have to recruit. You have to either find a lot of gems, or you got to recruit national. I mean, it's not one of the easier jobs in the conference. I think he's got them in a good spot. I think he does a great job.
He finds guys that fit his program. Like, you have to have a certain type of mindset to play for PJ, which is kind of, I've always said, kind of like the same type of guy that would go into the military.
He's nuts. He's like Urban. He's nuts.
Yeah. No, that's spot on. Yeah.
Well, he actually has to develop players, which, some of these schools have just taken a pass on that. They recruit kids that are ready to go, or they find them in the portal and they don't even try and develop anymore. But he actually does a good job making guys better, from year one.
No doubt.
So, well, Mark, hey, thank you so much for joining us, man. We appreciate it. We loved hearing some of your knowledge today and getting your thoughts on some of this stuff. We really, really appreciate it. Hopefully sometime we can get you back on and talk a little bit more.
Thank you.
No problem. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
All right, Mark. Have a good one, and thank you so much. We really appreciate your time, buddy.
Yep.
All right, buddy. All right, that was Marc Givler from Buckeye Huddle. Go check his stuff out. If you go to Buckeye Huddle, he's got a ton of really good content, a lot of great articles. As he just mentioned, he was down at the Elite 11, watching every throw from every prospect and every recruit, and really, I think, articulates it well as far as giving us view. In fact, that's where I go most of the time to get my recruiting news. I go to him. There's a lot of guys out there that cover recruiting, but Mark, to me, is one of the best, and I loved hearing him talk today, and I really appreciated him joining us.
Well,
what did you think about what he had to say, James? Before we go,
I love when he talked about the mental mindset of some of these players too, as well. I mean, it's something that a lot of people just don't talk about. Like, we talk about when he brought up the Arch Manning recruitment. I mean, that could have been a freaking 3-ring circus just based on the legacy aspect. And you look at how they kind of closed the ranks with Cooper, Eli, Arch, Big Archie. I mean, because they've all been through the process before, and they saw what happened to Peyton and Eli and what happened there. I thought the recruitment there made it much more easy on Arch. And it's interesting to listen to his thought process of what's going through their minds, because most people only think about the athletic ability. It's just, there's a lot that goes on between the ears and how they're thinking and what their process is going ahead.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I liked, I like the way that he describes players, and instead of just talking about all he can really throw it. I mean, he gives us the physical stuff, but I like how he gets to meet, he gets to know these guys. As he mentioned, he started talking to some of these kids when they were freshmen. And that's why I love Mark, and reading about him. He knows these kids, man. He goes and talks to them. He travels all over the country. He meets with them. He meets their families. He gets to know them, and he gives you a little bit of insight into their personality. And I think that helps to know, what these kids are thinking, where they might be going, what they're, whether they love football or not. All those things kind of factor into what their career is going to look like, and what their choice is going to be ultimately on which school they go to. So huge guest today, and I really enjoyed hearing Mark talk.
Absolutely. I mean, you get to that human aspect. Everybody forgets about that so much, but I mean, we only see them for 3 hours once a week. Guess what? There's another 6 hours and 21 days that happen to lead up to those 3 hours. So,
right. I wanted to ask him about Dylan Raiola, not Dominic, but I wanted to ask him about Dylan too. And we ran out of time there, but we'll save that for next time.
Who knows? That could become another, like Quinn Ewers to Texas, Dylan Raiola to Georgia, or Georgia to Ohio State. Yeah. I just kept looking at his film, and I'm like, man, I don't know.
I thought he would be a good fit at Ohio State. Honestly.
I did too.
I thought that was kind of the perfect spot for him, given his game, given the way that he plays, given the style of offense that he's played in high school. I thought that Ohio State was a good fit for him. I have no ill will towards the young man. These kids should go where they want to go, certainly, and go where they feel comfortable and where they like the coaches and like the school. I mean, it's so much more than just their fit on the football field. They have to enjoy going to school there and living in that city and all that type of stuff. So I want these kids to go where they want, but I just thought from a football standpoint, he would fit well there. As you mentioned, you compared him to Fields, and he's a little different than him, but I think a good comparison overall.
Well, I mean, left to right. I mean, it's hard with left-handed quarterbacks because there's not very many of them because of the spin rotation, but I like the way his makeup is in the pocket. And I think it's a great move for Ohio State. Now, I think it makes Brian Hartline's job a lot harder to do practicing on reverse rotations.
You're talking about with AIR NOLAN?
Yeah.
No, I agree. And I like this kid too. I mean, that's the roller coaster of being a Buckeye fan. One day I was sweating and freaking out, and then a couple days later I was like, oh, never mind, we're good, because honestly, I like this kid a lot. And not only do I like his physical traits and his abilities on the football field, but it sounds to me like he wants to, he has been bringing kids with him. And he's been a big recruiter for Ohio State since he committed there. So,
well, not only that, the Thurman kid that was part of the 23 class went to the same high school as Nolan too, as well. So,
Yes, that is true.
I was impressed his talk about Jeremiah Smith, though. I didn't realize he was that physical. Like he was. I mean, I knew he was big, but some of those guys are big, but not that physical. And when you start making Julio Jones comparisons, I mean, there's no messing around with that.
Julio Jones is one of the greatest wide receivers in the history of college football. So, if you're going to compare this kid to him, that's pretty amazing. And lost in all this is not only, it's Jeremiah Smith, going, but they've got several other wide receivers coming in. Yeah. We just talked about Carnell Tate, who's already on the field for the Buckeyes. We talked about Noah Rogers. We talked about Brandon Ennis. I mean, this room to me is just mind blowing. You think about some of these teams that don't have one guy that can just blow the top off a defense and just dazzle you with their plays. I mean, we're talking 5-6 guys minimum that are on this roster right now. So kudos to Brian Hartline. I mean, this dude may not be able to ride an ATV, but he can certainly bring kids in to play wide receiver.
It was interesting. I saw this picture come across my Facebook feed, and it's like these old school pictures. It was the quarterback room in the early 80s at the University of Miami. And their quarterback coach was Earl Morrall, the old Baltimore Colts quarterback who went to the Super Bowl. They had Jim Kelly at 1, Mark Richt at 2, Bernie Kosar at 3, Vinny Testaverde at 4, and I can't even remember who number 5 was, but he coached somewhere. And I'm like, holy crap. I'm like, this is crazy. Like, I mean, you're freaking putting Murderer's Row up there, and that was their quarterback room. And it made me think about Ohio State's receiver room. I mean, it's kind of hard to puff out your chest when the guy next to you is also number 1 receiver in the country, too, as well. And the guy to the left of you is the guy ahead of you. Same thing. I mean, your ego's got to get checked really quick. Otherwise, you're in trouble.
Yeah, and I think I agree with you 100%. And I think that's one of the reasons that these kids have played so well. I mean, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave. I mean, go down the list of Buka last year, Harrison. All these kids, the reason they've gotten so much better is if they don't get better, they're not going to play. I mean, they're not going to get out there. So I really like the competition. They've got to get better every single day. They've got to work on their game. They can't slack off. They can't sit here and talk about how great they are, because if they do, man, they'll fall out of the rotation really quickly, just based upon all the talent around them.
I don't think Ohio State fans truly appreciate what Hartline has done in the last 7 years. I mean, this is just, it's batshit crazy, to tell you the truth. I mean, this is unheard of, having this kind of success. But it also, I mean, look at the way the offense was set up by Day and what they've done, having Kevin Wilson there too as well. Yeah. Let's see how Hartline takes that next step. But
we will. Well, we know the Buckeye fans, if they lose one game, they'll want them all fired. So
Ryan Day is one step out the door. Yeah, they'll probably have the U-Haul truck outside of his house by
they were chanting, "We want Urban," at the Michigan game. So this is the type of people we're dealing with. But I get it. They want to win a title every year. I understand that. But you have to live in reality. It comes down to who's healthy at the end of the season. As we talked about with Marc Givler from Buckeye Huddle, we didn't have a running back at the end of the year. And that's why, these people all said, CJ Stroud can't run. Well, then you watch the Georgia game and he ran for almost 100 yards because he had to, because we didn't have any running backs left.
I mean, we're down to your 7th running back, and was it no JSN, no Harrison, Ibuka got hurt. I mean, it was like, who the hell's going to catch the ball at some point?
Yeah, we had Xavier Johnson out there as WR1, and he's a great kid, but based upon the talent in that room, it's kind of weird when he's your best option out there. So it all come down to January and February. It's who you have left to play, and who is healthy enough to go out there on the field. It makes a big difference. But I wish I could say I felt better about the offensive line after talking to Marc, but I may feel worse. That's as you said, are they done? And he was like, they don't really want to be, but there's nobody left really. So yikes. Hopefully they'll get better. Now this is where these coaches Mr. Day makes $9 million a year. Make these kids better. They criticize this offensive lineman. Well, let's see what he does. If he can get this offensive line to where they're run the football and pass blocking the way they should be, then they'll earn their money and everything will be fine. So sometimes you still have to develop players, James.
Absolutely, it's part of the game. I mean, hell, 18 to 22. Look how much your body changed.
Big time. It's changed a lot since then too, but
I know.
Gotten a lot fatter.
You're in shape. You're round.
Yeah, my shape is round. That's the type of shape I'm in. But awesome show today, James. Thanks for toughing it out. I know you've been under the weather, but I appreciate you joining us. Thanks to Marc Givler from Buckeye Huddle. Got to dig in deep with him. We'll talk about other teams next show, I promise. I want to hit on a little bit of Penn State. There's a lot of talk about how great they're going to be next year. We hear that pretty much every year, but they are semi-loaded. So I want to get into some of these other Big Ten teams, and then also, talk about Bama a little bit more. Is their quarterback situation, which we hit on earlier in the program, is certainly going to be interesting to watch.
Definitely. We'll see you next week. Same bad time, same bad channel.
Yes, sir. Take it easy. Keep your chin up, and we'll talk to you soon, bud.
Later.